Imagine this. Medical science keeps advancing. Every year we get better hospitals, better medications, better surgeries, better technology. People are living longer than ever before. That sounds like great news. But here's the question nobody asks. Are we actually living better? Picture two people. Both celebrate their 90th birthday. On paper, they've achieved the same thing. They've both lived long lives. But that's where the similarities end. The first person is still traveling, walking every morning, cooking meals, playing with grandchildren, reading books, remembering names, laughing with friends, living independently. The second person spends most of the day in a chair. They've had multiple heart procedures. They're managing diabetes. Their memory is fading. Simple tasks require assistance. Most of their week revolves around doctor appointments and medication schedules. Technically, both people reach 90. But would you say they had the same quality of life? Probably not. That's the central idea behind Outlive by Peter Attia. The goal isn't simply to stay alive longer. The goal is to stay healthy for as long as possible. Attia believes we've been asking the wrong question. Instead of asking, how can I live longer, we should be asking, how can I stay healthy until the very end? That difference changes everything. Most of us focus on lifespan. That's the total number of years we live. But Attia wants us to focus on something called healthspan. Healthspan is the number of years we spend healthy, active, mentally sharp, and independent. Think about your own future. When you're 80 years old, what do you want your life to look like? Do you want to climb stairs without getting exhausted? Carry your own groceries? Travel? Play with your grandchildren? Live in your own home? Or do you simply hope to still be breathing? It's a surprisingly uncomfortable question, because many of us assume that getting old automatically means getting sick. Heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, memory loss, weak muscles. We accept them as unavoidable. Peter Attia doesn't. He argues that while aging is inevitable, many of the diseases we associate with aging are not, at least not to the extent we've come to expect. That's a bold claim. But before explaining why, Attia asks us to rethink how modern medicine actually works. Most people believe healthcare is designed to keep us healthy. In reality, much of healthcare is designed to treat disease after it appears. Imagine your house catches fire. The firefighters arrive quickly. They put out the flames. They save the building. Everyone celebrates. That's important work. But wouldn't it have been even better if the fire had never started? That's the difference Attia's talking about. Modern medicine is excellent at fighting fires. It saves lives every single day. Emergency surgery, trauma care, infections, life-threatening illnesses. Doctors perform miracles that would have been impossible just a few decades ago. But chronic diseases don't usually behave like fires. They behave more like rust. Rust developed slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. By the time you notice serious damage, it's already been building for years. Heart disease doesn't suddenly appear one Tuesday morning. Type 2 diabetes doesn't develop overnight. Many cancers take decades to grow. Even Alzheimer's disease may begin years before symptoms become obvious. By the time people feel sick, the disease has often been progressing for a long time. Attia believes that's one of the biggest problems in healthcare today. We wait for symptoms, then we react. Instead, he argues we should identify risk much earlier and reduce it before disease takes hold. To explain this idea, Attia describes 3 eras of medicine. He calls them Medicine 1.0, Medicine 2.0, and Medicine 3.0. Medicine 1.0 was based mostly on observation. People didn't understand germs or modern biology. Treatments were limited. Many diseases remained mysteries. Then came Medicine 2.0. This was revolutionary. Scientists discovered antibiotics, vaccines, modern surgery, medical imaging, countless breakthroughs that transformed healthcare. Millions of lives were saved. Without Medicine 2.0, many of us wouldn't even be alive today. But Medicine 2.0 has a weakness. It's largely reactive. It often waits until disease becomes obvious. Blood sugar becomes too high. A heart attack happens. Cancer is detected. Symptoms appear. Then treatment begins. Attia believes it's time for Medicine 3.0, a different mindset. Instead of asking, how do we treat disease, Medicine 3.0 asks, how do we prevent disease from developing in the first place? That sounds obvious. Who wouldn't want prevention? But prevention is much harder than treatment. Treating a broken bone has clear steps. Preventing heart disease over 40 years requires thousands of small decisions. Better nutrition, regular movement, quality sleep, stress management, monitoring risk factors, consistency. None of these produce dramatic overnight results. That's exactly why many people ignore them. We're wired to respond to immediate problems, not invisible ones. If your tooth hurts, you'll call a dentist. If your cholesterol slowly rises over 20 years, it's easy to pretend nothing is wrong. The problem is that biology doesn't care whether we're paying attention. Our bodies are constantly responding to our daily habits. Every meal, every night's sleep, every hour spent sitting, every stressful day. Every decision adds another vote toward our future health. One of Attia's favorite ideas is something he calls the centenarian decathlon. Imagine you're training for the Olympics, not today's Olympics, the Olympics of your future self, specifically your 100-year-old self. Instead of asking, what exercises should I do today, he asks a different question. What do I want to be capable of when I'm 80, 90, or even 100? Maybe you want to lift your suitcase into an overhead compartment, carry a heavy bag of groceries, pick up your grandchild, get up from the floor without help, hike on vacation, play tennis, walk several miles without pain. Now work backward. If you want to do those things at 85, what kind of body do you need at 65? What about 45? What about today? That's a completely different way of thinking. Most people exercise to look better next summer. Attia says you should train for the life you want decades from now. It's a long-term investment, not a short-term project. This idea applies to more than fitness. It applies to every health decision. Many of the choices we make today won't reveal their consequences tomorrow. Some won't show up for 20 or 30 years. That's why health can feel so deceptive. Someone may smoke for years without symptoms. Someone else may eat poorly for decades while feeling perfectly fine. Then one day the consequences arrive, not because they appeared overnight, but because they were quietly building in the background. The opposite is true as well. A healthy meal won't transform your life today. Neither will one good workout or one extra hour of sleep. But thousands of those choices, repeated over decades, can completely change your future. That's one of the most hopeful messages in Outlive. You don't need to become perfect. You don't need to overhaul your entire life this week. You simply need to start making decisions that your future self will thank you for. Because longevity isn't built in a single moment. It's built one ordinary day at a time. And according to Peter Attia, if we truly want to protect our future, there's something else we need to understand. Most people don't actually die from old age. They die from a handful of chronic diseases that begin developing long before anyone notices them. And if we want to extend our health span, not just our lifespan, we first have to understand the 4 silent killers responsible for most deaths in the modern world.
If I asked you what most people die from, what would you say? Old age? Bad luck? Maybe just getting older? That's how most of us think about it. Someone reaches their 80s or 90s, passes away peacefully, and we simply say, they died of old age. But Peter Attia argues that old age isn't usually the real cause. In most cases, something else was happening behind the scenes, something that may have been developing for decades. According to Attia, 4 major diseases are responsible for the vast majority of deaths in the modern world. He calls them the Four Horsemen. The name comes from the famous image of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. These aren't dramatic illnesses that appear overnight. They're slow, patient, silent. They often spend years or even decades building inside the body before anyone notices. The Four Horsemen are heart disease, cancer, neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, and metabolic disease, including type 2 diabetes. Together, they account for an enormous percentage of illness, disability, and death. But here's the scary part. Most people don't realize they're at risk until the damage is already well underway. Let's start with the biggest one. Horseman number 1, heart disease. When people hear heart disease, they often picture a heart attack. A man grabs his chest, he collapses, an ambulance rushes to the hospital. Everything happens in minutes. But the heart attack isn't usually the beginning of the story. It's the ending. The real story often started 20 or 30 years earlier. Tiny amounts of cholesterol begin collecting inside artery walls. Inflammation slowly develops. Plaque builds up little by little. The arteries gradually become narrower. Year after year, most people feel perfectly fine. No pain, no warning, no obvious symptoms. Then one day, a plaque ruptures, a blood clot forms, blood flow stops, and suddenly a heart attack happens. It feels sudden, but biologically it wasn't sudden at all. It was decades in the making. That's one of Attia's biggest messages. The absence of symptoms doesn't mean the absence of disease. Horseman number 2, cancer. Cancer is frightening partly because it seems unpredictable. One day everything appears normal. Then someone hears the words nobody wants to hear. You have cancer. But cancer usually follows a much longer timeline than people imagine. A single abnormal cell may begin dividing years before a tumor becomes large enough to detect. Even after diagnosis, doctors are often treating a disease that has quietly existed for a long time. Modern medicine has made incredible progress. Many cancers are now highly treatable when caught early. That's why screening matters so much. Finding cancer earlier often means more treatment options and better outcomes. Attia emphasizes that waiting for symptoms can be dangerous. By the time symptoms appear, the disease may already be advanced. Prevention and early detection save lives, not because they're exciting, because they're effective. Horseman number 3, neurodegenerative disease. This category includes conditions like Alzheimer's disease. For many people, this is the disease they fear most. Imagine living a long life, but slowly losing your memories, forgetting your family, your friends, your own life story, losing the ability to recognize the people you love. It's heartbreaking. And unfortunately, Alzheimer's doesn't usually begin when memory problems first appear. Research suggests that changes inside the brain may begin many years before noticeable symptoms. That's why Attia believes brain health deserves far more attention long before old age. Healthy sleep, regular exercise, managing cardiovascular health, controlling metabolic disease, all of these may influence long-term brain health. Again, the theme remains the same. Earlier is better. Waiting until symptoms appear often means we're already behind. Horseman number 4, metabolic disease. Attia believes this may be the most underestimated threat of all. When people think about diabetes, they often picture high blood sugar. But metabolic disease is much broader than that. It includes insulin resistance, fatty liver disease, obesity, visceral fat, abnormal cholesterol, high blood pressure, and many other problems that quietly affect the body's metabolism. The dangerous part? These conditions often develop gradually. Someone gains a few pounds, then a few more. Blood sugar slowly rises, energy decreases, waist size expands. The process can continue for years before anyone receives a diagnosis. Many people assume they're healthy because they feel okay. But feeling okay doesn't always mean being healthy. Attia often points out that many people are living with metabolic dysfunction without realizing it. Some are overweight, others appear perfectly thin. That's right, being skinny doesn't automatically mean being metabolically healthy. Some people look fit on the outside while significant problems are developing internally. Appearance can be misleading. Health goes much deeper than body weight. Why these diseases are connected. At first, these 4 diseases seem unrelated. Heart disease affects the heart. Cancer affects abnormal cells. Alzheimer's affects the brain. Diabetes affects blood sugar. Different diseases, different organs, different treatments. But Attia argues they share something important: time. All 4 usually develop slowly. They're not random events. They're long biological processes. And because they develop slowly, we have opportunities to influence them. That's incredibly hopeful. Your future isn't written overnight. Neither is your health. Every healthy meal, every walk, every good night's sleep, every decision to manage stress, every effort to maintain muscle, every routine health check. These choices may seem small today, but over decades they can dramatically shift the odds in your favor. Why modern medicine often arrives too late. Imagine you own a car. Every day a tiny warning light flashes for 1 second. You ignore it. Nothing seems wrong. The car still drives. Months pass, years pass. Then one morning the engine fails completely. Was the breakdown sudden? Not really. The warning signs were there all along. The problem is that most diseases don't come with obvious warning lights. Our bodies are remarkably good at compensating. They keep functioning while damage slowly accumulates. That's why Attia encourages people to think proactively instead of reactively. Don't wait for the engine to fail. Maintain it while it's still running well. That's the essence of Medicine 3.0, a different way to think about aging. Many people believe aging itself is the enemy.
Attia disagrees. Aging is inevitable, but suffering from preventable chronic disease isn't always inevitable. That's an important distinction. The goal isn't to stop getting older. Nobody can do that. The goal is to reach old age with as much strength, independence, and mental clarity as possible. And to do that, we need to recognize our biggest threats long before they become emergencies. Because these 4 diseases rarely announce themselves in the beginning. They whisper, quietly, patiently, for years, sometimes decades. The good news is that one of these horsemen is especially responsive to lifestyle changes. In fact, improving it can also reduce the risk of the other 3. That disease is metabolic dysfunction. And according to Peter Attia, fixing your metabolism may be one of the most powerful investments you can make for your future health.
Walk into almost any gym, and you'll hear people talking about one thing: weight. I need to lose 10 pounds. I want 6-pack abs. I'm trying to get skinny. For many people, health and weight have become almost the same thing. If you're thin, you're healthy. If you're overweight, you're unhealthy. Simple, right? Not according to Peter Attia. In Outlive, he argues that one of the biggest mistakes we make is judging health by what we see in the mirror. Because the most dangerous health problem today often isn't visible. It's metabolic dysfunction, and millions of people have it without realizing it. Let's start with a surprising question. Can someone be overweight and still be metabolically healthy? Yes. Can someone be thin and metabolically unhealthy? Absolutely. In fact, Attia says some of the sickest metabolic profiles belong to people who look perfectly normal. That sounds backwards, but here's why. Your body doesn't care what size jeans you wear. It cares how well it's managing energy. Think of your metabolism as your body's engine. Every bite of food becomes fuel. That fuel has to be processed, stored, and used efficiently. When everything is working properly, your body handles that fuel smoothly. When the system starts breaking down, problems begin to pile up. And unlike a broken arm or a bad cold, metabolic problems usually don't hurt, at least not at first. That's why they're so dangerous. The disease that creeps up on you. Imagine filling a sink with water. If the drain works properly, the water flows away, no problem. Now imagine the drain slowly starts clogging. At first, you barely notice. The water still disappears, just a little more slowly. As the clog gets worse, water begins to collect. Eventually, the sink overflows. That's similar to what happens with metabolism. Your body is designed to process glucose, the sugar that comes from many of the foods you eat. A hormone called insulin helps move that glucose from your bloodstream into your cells, where it can be used for energy. Early in life, this system usually works beautifully. Eat, release insulin, move glucose into cells. Everything stays balanced. But over time, especially with excess calories, inactivity, poor sleep, chronic stress, and certain genetic factors, your cells may become less responsive to insulin. This is called insulin resistance. Your body starts knocking on the cell's door. The cell doesn't answer, so your body knocks harder. It releases even more insulin. For a while, that works. Blood sugar stays relatively normal. Everything appears fine. But behind the scenes, your pancreas is working overtime. Years later, the system starts wearing down. Blood sugar begins rising. Fat starts accumulating in places it shouldn't. Eventually, some people develop type 2 diabetes. The diagnosis may seem sudden, but the process often began many years earlier. The fat you can't see. Most people worry about the fat they can pinch, the fat around the stomach, the thighs, the arms. But Attia says the more dangerous fat is often invisible. It's called visceral fat. Unlike the fat just beneath your skin, visceral fat surrounds your organs, your liver, your pancreas, your intestines, your heart. This type of fat is metabolically active. It doesn't just sit there. It releases inflammatory chemicals. It interferes with hormones. It increases the risk of heart disease, diabetes, and many other chronic illnesses. And here's the tricky part. You don't have to look obese to have too much visceral fat. Some people appear slim while carrying significant fat around their internal organs. Doctors sometimes describe this as thin on the outside, fat on the inside. You'd never know just by looking. That's why appearance can be so misleading. The modern food environment. Now let's be clear. Metabolic disease isn't simply about eating sugar. It's much bigger than that. It's about the environment we've created. Think about how different life is today compared to just a few generations ago. Food is everywhere. Gas stations sell donuts. Office meetings include pastries. Movie theaters offer buckets of popcorn bigger than your head. Convenience stores are open all night. Food delivery arrives within minutes. Many products are designed to be incredibly rewarding. Crunchy, creamy, sweet, salty, all at once. Food companies spend enormous amounts of money making products that keep us coming back for another bite. The problem isn't just willpower, it's biology. Our brains evolved in a world where calories were scarce. Finding sweet or fatty foods was an advantage. Today, those same instincts are surrounded by unlimited, highly processed food. It's like giving someone with a shopping addiction unlimited access to an online store that never closes. The environment matters. A lot. Why weight loss isn't the real goal? This might surprise you. Peter Attia isn't obsessed with helping people lose weight. He's obsessed with helping people become metabolically healthy. Those aren't always the same thing. Someone can lose weight through extreme dieting, but if they lose muscle, damage their metabolism, and eventually regain all the weight, nothing has really improved. Attia wants people to build healthier bodies, not just lighter ones. That's an important distinction. The number on the scale is only one piece of information. It doesn't tell you how much muscle you have, how much visceral fat you're carrying, how sensitive your body is to insulin, or how healthy you'll be 20 years from now. Real health goes much deeper. Muscle, your metabolic superpower. Here's something most people don't realize. Muscle isn't just for athletes. It isn't just about looking strong. Muscle is one of your body's most important metabolic organs. Think of muscle as a giant storage warehouse. After you eat, your muscles help absorb glucose from the bloodstream. The more healthy muscle you have, the better your body can often manage blood sugar. As people age, they naturally lose muscle if they don't actively maintain it. That loss affects much more than strength. It affects balance, mobility, bone health, metabolism, even longevity. This is one reason Attia places such a huge emphasis on strength training. Not because he wants everyone to become bodybuilders, because he wants people to remain capable, strong enough to carry groceries, strong enough to prevent falls, strong enough to stay independent well into old age. Small problems become big problems. One of the hardest things about metabolic disease is that it develops so quietly. A little weight gain this year, a little less activity next year, slightly worse sleep, slightly higher blood sugar, a few more inches around the waist. None of those changes seem dramatic. But health isn't usually destroyed by one bad decision. It's shaped by thousands of ordinary decisions repeated over time. The same is true in the opposite direction. You don't become metabolically healthy after one workout, or one salad, or one good night's sleep. Health compounds, just like interest in a savings account. Small investments, made consistently, growing quietly in the background. The goal isn't to be perfect. One of the most refreshing ideas in Outlive is that Peter Attia doesn't ask people to chase perfection. He asks them to play the long game. Build more muscle, move more often, eat in a way that supports your metabolism, sleep well, monitor important health markers, keep improving. Because metabolic health isn't about looking good for a vacation. It's about protecting yourself from the diseases that steal quality of life decades later. And if Attia had to choose just one tool to fight almost every major disease we've talked about so far, his answer might surprise you. It isn't a medication. It isn't a supplement. It isn't a special diet. It's exercise. In fact, he calls exercise the single most powerful longevity drug ever discovered. The only catch? Unlike a pill, you have to keep taking it for the rest of your life.
If Peter Attia could prescribe just one treatment to almost everyone on Earth, what do you think it would be? A miracle drug? A revolutionary supplement? A breakthrough medical procedure? None of the above. His answer is surprisingly simple: exercise. In Outlive, Attia makes a bold statement. Exercise is probably the most powerful tool we have for extending both lifespan and health span. Not because it helps you lose weight, not because it gives you six-pack abs, but because it affects nearly every system in your body: your heart, your lungs, your muscles, your brain, your metabolism, your bones, even your mood. There isn't another intervention with such a wide range of benefits, and yet, many people still think of exercise as something they do to improve their appearance. Attia wants us to think much bigger than that. He wants us to train for the life we hope to have decades from now. Stop training for summer. Most fitness goals are short-term. I want to look good at the beach. I need to fit into my old jeans. I have a wedding in 3 months. There's nothing wrong with those goals, but they're temporary. Once the vacation ends or the event is over, motivation often disappears. Attia suggests a completely different approach. Imagine yourself at 80 or 90 years old. What do you want to be able to do? Carry your own groceries? Walk up a flight of stairs without stopping? Travel without needing a wheelchair? Pick up your grandchild? Get off the floor without asking for help? Those are the questions that matter, because one day, your body will either let you do those things or it won't. The decisions you make today determine which future you get. Meet your future self. Attia introduces an idea called the centenarian decathlon. Think of it as a list of physical events you'd like to complete when you're 100 years old. Not Olympic events, everyday life events. Lifting a suitcase into an overhead bin, carrying shopping bags from the car, walking several miles while traveling, climbing stairs, getting up from the ground without assistance, playing with grandchildren, opening a heavy door, balancing on one leg. These don't sound impressive until you can't do them anymore. Loss of independence rarely happens all at once. It happens one ability at a time. First you stop running, then climbing stairs becomes difficult, then carrying groceries. Eventually, even getting out of a chair becomes challenging. Attia says we should train now for the abilities we'll need later. That completely changes the purpose of exercise. Cardio isn't just about your heart. Most people think cardiovascular exercise is about avoiding heart disease. That's certainly part of it. But Attia focuses on something called VO2 max. It sounds technical, but the idea is simple. VO2 max measures how efficiently your body uses oxygen during intense activity. In other words, it's a measure of your overall aerobic fitness. Why does that matter? Because study after study shows that people with higher cardiovascular fitness tend to live longer, much longer. In fact, having a high VO2 max is associated with a significantly lower risk of death from many causes. Think of it this way. Your heart and lungs are like the engine in a car. A stronger engine makes everything easier. Walking, hiking, playing sports. Even everyday tasks become less exhausting. Attia believes improving aerobic fitness is one of the best investments you can make. The workout most people ignore. If you followed fitness trends, you've probably heard about high-intensity interval training. Short bursts of all-out effort. Very effective. Very challenging. Attia likes high-intensity training. But he also spends a surprising amount of time talking about something much less exciting. Zone 2 training. Zone 2 is moderate exercise. You're working. You're breathing harder. But you can still hold a conversation. Think brisk walking uphill. Easy cycling. Light jogging. Rowing at a comfortable pace. It doesn't look impressive. You won't collapse afterward. You probably won't post it on social media. But Attia believes this type of training builds the aerobic foundation that supports long-term health. Sometimes the most effective training isn't the most dramatic. It's the one you can repeat consistently for years. Muscle is your retirement account. Here's one of Attia's favorite ideas. Think of muscle as savings for the future. When you're young, it's relatively easy to build. As you age, your body naturally begins losing it. If you don't actively maintain muscle, that decline accelerates. Why does this matter? Because muscle isn't just about strength. Muscle protects your metabolism, supports your bones, improves balance, reduces injury risk, helps regulate blood sugar, and gives you the strength to stay independent. Attia often says that people don't suddenly become weak at 80. They've been gradually losing strength for decades. The good news, strength can be trained at almost any age. Your body is remarkably adaptable. Even older adults can become significantly stronger through resistance training. It's never too late to start, but earlier is always better. Don't forget stability. There's another area Attia emphasizes that many people overlook. Stability, balance, coordination. Imagine standing on one foot. Easy. Now imagine doing it at 90. Falls are one of the leading causes of injury among older adults. A single fall can completely change someone's life. Broken hips, hospital stays, loss of independence. That's why Attia encourages exercises that improve balance and stability. Simple movements today can help prevent serious injuries years later. Sometimes the goal isn't becoming stronger. It's becoming harder to knock over. Fitness is about freedom. Think about someone in excellent physical condition. What do they actually gain? Freedom. Freedom to travel. Freedom to hike. Freedom to play with their kids. Freedom to move without pain. Freedom to say yes to opportunities. Poor fitness slowly removes those choices. People begin organizing life around physical limitations. They avoid stairs, long walks, vacations, adventures, not because they don't want to go, because their bodies won't cooperate. Attia wants us to protect that freedom, not for next month, for the next 30 years. The best exercise is the one you'll keep doing. One question people constantly ask is, what's the best workout? Running, cycling, swimming, weightlifting, yoga? The truth is, there's no perfect answer. The best exercise program is the one you'll actually continue doing. For years, consistency beats perfection. Always. One workout changes very little. 1,000 workouts change everything. That's how longevity works. Tiny improvements, repeated over decades. Exercise can't fix everything. Now here's an important point. Exercise is incredibly powerful, but it isn't magic. You can't outtrain a terrible lifestyle forever. You can't ignore sleep, ignore nutrition, ignore stress, ignore emotional health. Your body doesn't separate these things. Everything works together. That's one of the biggest themes throughout Outlive. Longevity isn't built on a single habit. It's built on systems. And perhaps no system confuses people more than nutrition. Every year, a new diet promises to be the answer. Low carb, keto, vegan, carnivore, Mediterranean, intermittent fasting. Everyone claims they found the perfect way to eat. Peter Attia has a different perspective. He believes most people are asking the wrong question, because there probably isn't one perfect diet for everyone.
If you've ever tried to eat healthier, you've probably experienced this. One expert tells you to eat more carbohydrates. Another says carbs are the enemy. One recommends a plant-based diet. Another swears by eating nothing but meat. One says breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Another says you should skip it completely. Coffee is good. Coffee is bad. Eggs are healthy. Eggs are dangerous. Butter is making a comeback. Nope, wait, now it's olive oil again. At some point, you start wondering if anyone actually knows what they're talking about. Peter Attia understands that frustration. In Outlive, he doesn't spend hundreds of pages trying to convince you that one specific diet is the answer. In fact, one of his biggest messages is this: there is no perfect diet for everyone. That might sound disappointing. People love simple answers. They want someone to say, eat exactly this and you'll live to 100. But biology doesn't work that way. We're all different. Different genetics, different lifestyles, different activity levels, different health conditions, different goals. The best diet for one person may be a terrible diet for someone else. That's why Attia spends less time arguing about diet labels and more time focusing on principles. Stop joining food tribes. Have you noticed how nutrition has started to resemble politics? People don't just follow diets anymore. They defend them. Keto versus vegan, carnivore versus Mediterranean, low fat versus low carb. Everyone believes they've discovered the truth. Social media only makes it worse. Every day, someone claims they found the one food that's secretly killing you. Then someone else says the exact opposite. It's exhausting. Attia avoids this trap. He argues that many different eating patterns can work. The real question isn't which diet is best. The better question is which diet helps you stay healthy and that you can actually follow for years. Because the world's healthiest diet is useless if you quit after 3 weeks. Consistency always beats perfection. Calories still matter. Now let's address something that often starts arguments: calories. Some people insist calories don't matter. Others say calories are the only thing that matters. Attia takes a more balanced view. Yes, hormones matter, food quality matters, protein matters, blood sugar matters, but energy balance matters too. If your body consistently receives more energy than it uses, that extra energy has to go somewhere. Usually it's stored. Understanding calories doesn't mean obsessively counting every bite. It simply means recognizing that our bodies obey the laws of physics. At the same time, Attia points out that not all calories affect us equally. 2 meals may contain the same number of calories while producing very different effects on hunger, energy, and blood sugar. Quality still matters. Protein deserves more attention. If there's one nutrient Attia consistently emphasizes, it's protein, especially as we get older. Why? Because muscle is incredibly valuable, and maintaining muscle becomes harder with age. Many adults gradually lose muscle without noticing, year after year, until one day they realize they aren't nearly as strong as they used to be. That's not just a cosmetic problem, it's a health problem. Remember what we talked about in the previous chapter. Muscle supports metabolism, balance, strength, independence, longevity. Protein provides the building blocks that help maintain and repair that muscle. Attia believes many people, particularly older adults, don't eat enough of it. Not because protein is magical, because preserving muscle becomes one of the best investments you can make for your future. Blood sugar isn't just a diabetes problem. Another topic Attia spent a lot of time discussing is blood sugar. Most people think blood sugar only matters if you have diabetes. Not exactly. Your blood sugar rises every time you eat carbohydrates. That's normal. The question is how high it rises, how long it stays elevated, and how efficiently your body brings it back down. Some foods create gentle increases. Others cause sharp spikes followed by rapid crashes. Those crashes can leave people feeling tired, hungry, irritable. Then they reach for another snack. The cycle repeats itself.
Attia encourages people to understand how different foods affect their own bodies. Notice the word own. Not everyone responds to food in the same way. One person may tolerate rice perfectly well. Another may experience dramatic blood sugar spikes. Nutrition is surprisingly personal. Ultra-processed foods changed the game. If there's one thing most nutrition experts can agree on, it's this. We probably eat too many ultra-processed foods. Think about what's filling supermarket shelves. Brightly colored packages. Foods with ingredient lists that sound like chemistry experiments. Products designed to last for months. Manufacturers spend billions of dollars creating foods that are incredibly rewarding. The perfect crunch. The perfect sweetness. The perfect texture. These foods aren't just convenient. They're engineered to keep you eating. Compare that with whole foods. An apple eventually fills you up. A bag of potato chips often disappears before you even realize it. That's not because you're weak. It's because your brain responds differently. Attia isn't telling everyone to eliminate every processed food forever. He's asking us to recognize the environment we're living in. Because the easier unhealthy choices become, the more intentional healthy choices need to be. There's no medal for suffering. One thing that makes Attia different from many health influencers is that he doesn't romanticize suffering. Some diets make people miserable, constantly hungry, obsessing over every meal, avoiding social events, feeling guilty every time they eat dessert. That's not a sustainable way to live. Health should improve your life, not consume it. The best nutrition plan is one that supports your goals while still allowing you to enjoy birthdays, holidays, vacations, and dinner with friends. Because health isn't only about adding years to life. It's also about making those years enjoyable. Think in decades, not days. One unhealthy meal won't ruin your health, just like one healthy meal won't transform it. Nutrition works the same way investing does. Imagine investing $10. You won't become rich overnight, but invest consistently for 30 years? That's a different story. Healthy eating follows the same principle. The occasional pizza isn't the problem. The occasional salad isn't the solution. Patterns matter. Habits matter. What you do most of the time matters. Attia encourages people to stop chasing quick fixes. Stop looking for miracle foods. Stop believing every new headline. Instead, build an eating pattern you can maintain for decades. One that supports muscle, metabolic health, energy, and long-term well-being. Food isn't the whole story. By this point, we've covered the major pillars of physical health: preventing chronic disease, improving metabolism, building strength, eating well. Many people would stop there, but Peter Attia doesn't. In fact, he admits that for much of his own career, he overlooked something incredibly important. He focused almost entirely on physical health: lab results, exercise, nutrition, biomarkers. What he ignored was his emotional health. And eventually he realized that no amount of physical fitness could compensate for unresolved stress, poor sleep, unhealthy relationships, and emotional pain. Because true longevity isn't just about having a healthy body, it's about having a healthy mind as well.
Imagine two people. They eat almost the same foods, they exercise the same amount, they have similar body fat, similar muscle mass, and similar medical checkups. On paper, they look almost identical. But there's one major difference. The first person sleeps 8 hours every night. They manage stress well. They have close relationships. They know when to slow down. The second person sleeps 5 hours a night. They're constantly anxious. They never truly relax. Work follows them everywhere. They're always on. Who do you think will be healthier 10 years from now? Most of us already know the answer. Yet sleep and emotional health are usually the first things we sacrifice. We'll stay up another hour to answer emails. We'll scroll through social media instead of going to bed. We'll tell ourselves we're too busy to deal with stress. We'll ignore emotional problems because they don't show up on a blood test. Peter Attia used to think that way too. For years, he focused almost entirely on measurable health: blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, VO2 max, body fat, muscle mass. He optimized everything he could measure. But eventually, he realized something uncomfortable. His physical health looked excellent. His emotional health did not. That realization became one of the most personal parts of Outlive. The health problem nobody sees. Most people think of health as something physical. If your blood work looks good, you're healthy. If you're fit, you're healthy. If you're not sick, you're healthy. But that's only part of the picture. Imagine buying a brand new sports car. The engine is perfect. The the tires are brand new. Everything under the hood works flawlessly. Now imagine the driver is exhausted, distracted, and emotionally overwhelmed every time they get behind the wheel. The car is in great shape. The driver isn't. Eventually, something goes wrong. Your body works the same way. You can build an incredibly strong body, but if your mind is constantly under pressure, your health will eventually pay the price. Sleep is not a luxury. Let's start with sleep. Many people wear sleep deprivation like a badge of honor. I only sleep 5 hours. I'll sleep when I'm dead. I'm too busy. For years, society celebrated people who could function with very little sleep. Attia argues that's a terrible strategy because sleep isn't wasted time. It's one of the most productive things your body does. While you're sleeping, your brain organizes memories. Your muscles recover. Hormones are regulated. Your immune system gets stronger. Damaged cells are repaired. Your body performs maintenance that simply can't happen as efficiently when you're awake. Imagine never charging your phone. Eventually, the battery dies. Now imagine never allowing your body to recharge. The same principle applies. You might keep going for a while, but performance slowly declines. The scary part is that sleep deprivation often feels normal. If someone sleeps 6 hours a night for years, they may forget what feeling fully rested actually feels like. Their baseline shifts. They assume constant fatigue is just part of adulthood. It isn't. Stress is supposed to be temporary. Stress isn't the enemy. In fact, we need it. Exercise is a form of stress. Learning something difficult creates stress. Starting a business creates stress. The problem isn't stress itself. The problem is never turning it off. Think about our ancestors. A dangerous animal appears. Stress hormones surge. Heart rate increases. Muscles prepare for action. The danger passes. The body returns to normal. Today's stress works differently. Emails, deadlines, bills, traffic, news, notifications, financial pressure, relationship problems. These stressors rarely disappear completely. Many people stay in a low-level stress response all day, every day. The body was never designed for that. Over months and years, chronic stress can affect sleep, blood pressure, metabolism, immunity, and overall well-being. Attia realized that optimizing health isn't just about improving performance. It's about improving recovery. Recovery is where growth happens, whether you're talking about muscles, the brain, or emotional resilience. The lesson Peter Attia learned the hard way. One of the most surprising parts of Outlive isn't about medicine. It's about Peter Attia himself. By many standards, he looked incredibly successful. He was highly educated, financially successful, physically fit, professionally respected. But beneath the surface, he was struggling. He became impatient, quick to anger, emotionally disconnected. His relationships suffered. Eventually, he realized something painful. He had spent years optimizing his body while neglecting his emotional life. That realization led him to therapy. At first, he resisted the idea. Like many people, he believed therapy was only for people in crisis. Eventually, he discovered something very different. Therapy wasn't about weakness. It was about understanding himself, learning healthier ways to respond, breaking patterns he didn't even realize he had. Attia openly admits that working on his emotional health changed his life just as much as improving his physical health. That's a powerful message, especially coming from someone known for science and medicine. Relationships are medicine too. Think about the happiest people you know. Chances are they don't just have healthy bodies, they have healthy relationships, supportive families, good friends, people they trust. Humans are social creatures. We're wired for connection. Isolation affects more than our mood. It affects our biology. When people feel lonely for long periods, stress often increases. Sleep suffers. Healthy habits become harder to maintain. The opposite is also true. Strong relationships create resilience. They help us recover from setbacks. They encourage healthier choices. They make life meaningful. No supplement can replace that. You can't optimize everything. One of the biggest takeaways from Outlive is that health isn't a collection of separate boxes. It's a system. Sleep affects exercise. Exercise affects mood. Mood affects food choices. Food affects metabolism. Metabolism affects energy. Everything is connected. You can't ignore one part forever and expect the others to compensate. That's why Attia encourages people to stop looking for magic bullets. There isn't one. Health is built by combining many good habits, not perfect habits, consistent ones. The real goal. At the beginning of this journey, we asked a simple question. What does it really mean to live a long life? After everything we've learned, the answer feels much clearer. It's not about collecting birthdays. It's not about avoiding death forever. It's about protecting the years that make life worth living, having the strength to carry your grandchildren, the energy to travel,
The memory to recognize the people you love, the emotional health to enjoy those moments, the independence to live life on your own terms. That's the future Peter Attia wants us to build. Not through miracle drugs, not through extreme diets, but through thoughtful decisions made every single day. Because the best time to prepare for old age isn't when you're old, it's right now. Your future health isn't something that suddenly appears one day. It's something you're quietly creating with every meal, every workout, every good night's sleep, every meaningful conversation, and every choice you make today. And that's the lasting message of Outlive. Living longer is only half the goal. The other half is making sure those extra years are truly worth living.
Imagine owning a house for 50 years. Every few months, you notice a tiny crack in the wall. Nothing serious, just a small crack, so you ignore it. A few years later, another crack appears, then another. The roof starts leaking during heavy rain. Still, you tell yourself, it's probably nothing. Then one day, part of the ceiling collapses. Now everyone rushes to fix the problem. The repair crew arrives, engineers inspect the damage, the house gets rebuilt. But here's the question. Wouldn't it have been much easier and much cheaper to fix those tiny cracks years earlier? Peter Attia believes that's exactly how most people approach their health. We wait. We wait until something hurts. We wait until a blood test looks terrible. We wait until we receive a diagnosis. Then we finally decide to pay attention. The problem is that our bodies don't usually work that way. Most chronic diseases don't appear overnight. They develop quietly, one small change at a time. And by the time symptoms show up, the disease has often been progressing for years. That's why Attia believes the future of medicine isn't treatment, it's prediction and prevention. Why feeling fine can be misleading. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming they must be healthy because they feel healthy. I feel great. I have plenty of energy. I never get sick. That's reassuring, but it's not proof. Think about high blood pressure. Millions of people have it. Most don't feel anything. No pain, no dizziness, no warning signs. Yet over time, high blood pressure quietly damages blood vessels, the heart, the kidneys, and even the brain. The same is true for high cholesterol, fatty liver disease, insulin resistance, even some cancers. Your body can compensate for an astonishing amount of damage before you notice anything is wrong. That's why Attia says symptoms are often late-stage events. The disease starts first. The symptoms come later, much later. The difference between screening and waiting. Imagine two drivers. The first driver gets their car inspected regularly. Oil changes, brake checks, tire rotations, minor repairs. The second driver ignores every warning light until smoke starts coming out of the engine. Which car is more likely to last? It's obvious. Yet many of us treat our own bodies like the second driver. We only pay attention when something breaks. Attia encourages a completely different mindset. Instead of waiting for disease, actively look for risk. That doesn't mean becoming paranoid. It means becoming informed. Know your numbers. Understand your family history. Monitor changes over time. Small problems are much easier to manage than major ones. Your future is written slowly. One reason prevention feels difficult is because it doesn't provide instant rewards. If you brush your teeth tonight, you won't wake up tomorrow with dramatically healthier teeth. If you save a little money today, you won't become wealthy by next week. The benefits arrive slowly. Health works exactly the same way. Every healthy habit is a small investment. Every unhealthy habit is a small withdrawal. One missed workout doesn't matter, neither does one healthy meal. The problem is repetition. Small actions repeated thousands of times eventually become your future. Attia wants people to stop thinking in days and start thinking in decades, because biology keeps score whether you're paying attention or not. The risk calculator in your head. Here's an interesting exercise. Imagine your future self visits you today, not to judge you, not to criticize you, just to give advice. What would your 75-year-old self tell you? Would they say, "I'm so glad you started exercising. I'm grateful you quit smoking. Thank you for taking sleep seriously. Thanks for building muscle while it was easier"? Or would they say, "I wish you had started sooner"?
One of the themes running throughout Outlive is delayed consequences. Most health decisions don't feel important today. That's exactly why they're so important. Personalization matters. Another idea Attia emphasizes is that medicine should become increasingly personal. Not everyone has the same risks. Some people have a strong family history of heart disease. Others have a higher risk of certain cancers. Some are more vulnerable to metabolic disease. Others remain healthy with relatively little effort. Blanket advice only goes so far. Understanding your own risk profile allows you to make smarter decisions. The goal isn't fear. The goal is precision. Instead of reacting to disease after it appears, you build a strategy based on where you're most vulnerable. That's a much smarter game to play. Health is like compound interest. One of the best ways to understand Attia's philosophy is to compare health with investing. Imagine two people. The first saves a small amount of money every month beginning at age 25. The second waits until age 50 before saving aggressively. Both invest, both work hard. But the first person has something the second doesn't: time. Health works exactly the same way. Small improvements made early often create enormous benefits later. Building muscle in your 30s helps protect you in your 70s. Improving metabolic health today reduces future risk. Learning stress management now may improve your quality of life for decades. The earlier you begin, the more time those benefits have to compound. The goal isn't to live forever. Sometimes people misunderstand Peter Attia's work. They think he's trying to cheat death. He's not. He knows everyone dies. The goal isn't immortality. The goal is avoiding unnecessary suffering. Think about two different endings to life. One person remains active, independent, mentally sharp, and engaged until shortly before death. Another spends 20 years gradually losing mobility, memory, and independence. Both eventually die, but the journey is completely different. Attia wants more people to experience the first path, not because life lasts forever, but because the years you do have are healthier, richer, more meaningful. Prevention is an everyday habit. People often imagine prevention as something dramatic: a medical test, a surgery, a medication. Sometimes those are important, but real prevention usually looks much less exciting. Going for a walk, cooking dinner at home, getting enough sleep, lifting weights, managing stress, making time for friends and family, keeping medical appointments, repeating those habits year after year. It isn't flashy, it doesn't make headlines, but that's how long-term health is built: quietly, patiently, consistently. The blueprint for a longer, better life. After everything we've covered, one thing becomes clear. There isn't one secret. No miracle food, no magical supplement, no single workout. Longevity is the result of multiple systems working together: exercise, nutrition, sleep, emotional health, purpose, early prevention, consistency. In the next, we'll bring all of these ideas together into one practical blueprint, a roadmap you can start using today to build not just a longer life, but a healthier and more meaningful one.
If you've made it this far, you might be wondering something. So, what's the one thing I should do? Should you start lifting weights, eat more protein, track your blood sugar, sleep 8 hours, meditate, get more medical tests? Peter Attia's answer is probably not the one most people want to hear, because there isn't one thing. Health isn't built on a single habit. It's built on systems. Think about building a house. A strong roof won't help if the foundation is collapsing. Beautiful windows don't matter if the walls are falling apart. Everything has to work together. Your health works the same way. Exercise, nutrition, sleep, emotional health, preventative medicine, strong relationships, purpose. None of them work in isolation. The goal is to build a system that supports you for decades, not just for the next vacation. Start with exercise. If Attia had to choose where most people should begin, he'd probably say exercise. Not because it's trendy, because its benefits are impossible to ignore. Exercise lowers the risk of heart disease, improves metabolic health, protects the brain, strengthens bones, preserves muscle, improves mood, helps you sleep better. In many ways, it's the foundation that supports everything else. But remember, don't exercise just to look better. Exercise so your 80-year-old self can still carry groceries, travel comfortably, play with grandchildren, stand up without assistance. Train for the life you want later, not the body you want next month. Build muscle like you're saving for retirement. Money compounds, so does muscle. The strength you build in your 40s may become the independence you enjoy in your 80s. Many people think muscle is optional. It's not. It's insurance. Insurance against falls, frailty, loss of independence, metabolic disease. Attia often reminds people that aging naturally takes muscle away. If you aren't actively maintaining it, you're gradually losing it. That's simply biology. The earlier you invest, the greater the return. Eat for the long game. Forget chasing the perfect diet. Forget the endless arguments on social media. Instead, ask yourself a simpler question. Can I eat this way for the next 20 years? If the answer is no, it's probably not the right plan. Healthy eating isn't about punishment. It's about sustainability. Choose foods that support your metabolism. Eat enough protein. Prioritize whole foods. Pay attention to how your own body responds. And remember that consistency beats perfection. One healthy meal changes very little. 10,000 healthy meals change everything. Protect your sleep like it's part of your job. Many successful people sacrifice sleep to get ahead. Attia would argue they're making an expensive trade because poor sleep eventually affects almost everything else. Your mood, your metabolism, your recovery, your memory, your immune system, your decision-making. Sleep isn't downtime, it's maintenance. Your body performs some of its most important work while you're asleep. Treat sleep with the same respect you give exercise, not as something you fit in if there's time, as something you protect. Don't ignore your mind. One of the most powerful lessons in Outlive has nothing to do with medicine. It's Attia's willingness to admit he was wrong. For years, he believed physical health was enough. Eventually, he realized it wasn't. Emotional health matters, relationships matter, self-awareness matters. Therapy changed his life because it helped him understand patterns that no blood test could reveal. That's an important reminder. You can have perfect cholesterol and still be miserable. You can have visible abs and still struggle emotionally. Real health includes both the body and the mind. Ignoring either one creates problems eventually. Think like an investor. Imagine someone offers you two choices. Option 1, $1 million tomorrow. Option 2, 1 penny today that doubles every day for a month. Most people choose the $1 million, but the second option grows into something much larger because of compounding. Health follows the same principle. Small improvements, repeated consistently, compounding over decades. Walk a little more, sleep a little better, build a little more muscle, reduce a little stress, improve your diet a little. None of those actions feel life-changing today. Together, they can completely reshape your future. Your future is built by today's habits. Here's something worth remembering. Your body is always adapting every single day. The question isn't whether it's changing. The question is which direction it's changing. Towards strength or weakness. Towards resilience or disease. Towards independence or dependence. Every habit casts a vote. No single vote decides the election, but thousands of months potentially do. That's why Attia isn't interested in quick fixes. He's interested in trajectories. Small improvements maintained over long periods. The question that changes everything. Near the beginning of the series, we asked an important question. What do you want your last decade of life to look like? Now that question probably means something different. It's no longer just about living longer. It's about living well. Can you still think clearly? Can you still walk confidently? Can you still laugh with friends? Travel? Learn? Love? Contribute? Those are the things that make a long life meaningful, not the number on a birthday cake. The final lesson. Most people spend their lives planning for retirement, saving money, building investments, preparing financially. Peter Attia asks us to prepare physically and mentally as well, because what good is financial freedom if your body won't let you enjoy it? What's the point of living to 90 if the last 20 years are filled with preventable suffering? Outlive isn't really a book about death. It's a book about life, about protecting the years that mattered most, about giving yourself the best chance to stay strong, capable, curious, and independent for as long as possible. The future version of you is being created right now, not next year, not after the holidays, not when work becomes less busy, today. With today's lunch, today's walk, tonight's sleep, tomorrow's workout, the conversation you have with someone you love, the choices that seem ordinary today become the life you experience years from now. And perhaps that's the most encouraging message Peter Attia leaves us with. You don't need perfect genes. You don't need unlimited money. You don't need to wait for a miracle breakthrough in medicine. The greatest investment you will ever make isn't in the stock market. It isn't in real estate. It isn't even in your career. It's in your future self. Because a longer life is a gift, but a longer life filled with strength, purpose, independence, and joy. That's a life truly worth living. Thank you for watching. And if you found value in the series, remember this. The best time to protect your future health wasn't 10 years ago. The second best time is today.